Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have a special guest. She's Love Investigator, TEDx speaker, and the author of the upcoming book, Love is Not Blind, You Are. Or open your eyes. No other than me, Shelley Levin. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Shelley, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Well, I like to call myself the love investigator, and my book is all about winning the game of love because if you say the term love is a game, right, which is
Yes.
very, very common. Well, that's great. Love is a game, actually. But how do you play? Where's my playbook? Like if I went you to ask you to play cricket or chess or volleyball or basketball, and you'd never played before, you would probably go to like Chat GPT these days and you look, okay, so how do I play this game? And you had
Yes.
nobody to tell you how to play. You'd need a playbook. And so, what I have discovered through 10 plus years of researching and sleuthing and observing the game of love is that there is actually four positions in the game of love, and we each come from one of these positions. It's our biological, we are born into these positions just like we are, like our blood types. And so each position has a distinct biological concern that drives our actions in love. So without us being fully aware of it, it's how we show up in life, and it's how we show up in love. And so if you look at it that way versus just this, oh, I'm just going to fall in love, I'm just going to meet somebody and somehow we're going to connect. It's a much more structured way to look at the game of love that gives you a map, essentially, which is the compass. So north, east, south, and west. And it gives you a map to guide you in how to go about playing the game of love so that you can connect with people and match with people and recognize and understand how you are attracted to certain people in different ways. So that's essentially what the whole book is about. And I have all these maps that I think I'll do the next book on, and how we can see each of these positions and how we each play these positions in the game of love, just as if you would any other game.
So, who is your target audience for Love is Not Blind, You Are?
Well, this particular book is actually after the show on Netflix called Love is Blind.
Yes.
And so it's this book is kind of focused more on like 30 plus people that are dating and kind of tired of all the apps, the dating apps, and recognizing that it's all, and I've heard this so many times, it's all so superficial because your only kind of view of it is this very like picture. It's a picture of somebody. It is very superficial. So we don't dive deep into the real things that matter, which is all these different ways to attract people in our lives. And so I go through this checklist in my book in how to go about dating, which is this group of people in the love game. And I have six different ways to kind of to look at it. So the first thing is awareness. So you have to be self-aware. So you have to be aware of your position in the game of love, which is I use the compass, northeast, south, and west. And you have to be aware of your own position in the game. And this is actually so relieving because you start seeing like, oh, this is how I actually am, and you learn to appreciate it and take responsibility for it. And then you see how these other three positions in the game are looking at love. So you first thing is self-awareness. So I'm just going to kind of go through the book real quickly, kind
Yes.
of
Go
like
ahead.
the outline of it. And so you first have to learn self-awareness, and the second thing is positional awareness. So you start understanding the position of other people in the game of love. And you start recognizing how this whole thing is coordinated and this action happens and how all this connection happens. And you start realizing this sequence and cycle is happening 24/7, 365 in every way you can think of in every possible dynamic. So then the second part is attraction, and there's four different types of attraction. So you of course have the physical attraction, and then you have intellectual attraction, then you have intellect or emotional attraction, sorry, is the second one, intellectual attraction, and then you have the positional attraction, which we're not aware of yet because as I'm demonstrating, there's northeast, south, and west, and we're attracted to the opposites of us for a very important reason, because the opposite of us fulfills that part of us that we know we aren't inherently, and that's why they're attractive. So then we go into interests, which is the third part of the checklist that's in my book. And so you obviously have to have some similar interests. And you have to learn what those interests are and how. But the cool thing about the interests is that you start realizing, based on your position in the game, northeast, south, or west, that you look at these interests very differently. For instance, say you like pottery, Daniel.
Yes.
And you would look at pottery very different than I do, or all the other three positions. And what's so cool about that is then you each come from a very different angle, and you can kind of have a little love in about pottery, but from a very different position. And so then the fourth part is values. So of course you have to have similar values when you're trying to connect with somebody and have an intimate or like a romantic relationship. And that I have a whole list of things that you can ask and kind of come together on different values and how if it's a rule, if it's a deal breaker, it's a deal breaker, you know.
Yes.
So that's a whole other chapter in the book. And then the fifth part of the checklist, which is 6, is effective communication. You have to learn how to effectively communicate. And each position communicates very differently based on their survival concern in the game of love. Einstein says, um, learn the rules and play better than anybody else. Pretty much. I mean, that's kind of like a synthesis of it. But so if you don't know the rules of the game of love, like you can't play. It's like if I asked you to sit down and play chess and you never played before, and I didn't tell you how to play, you wouldn't be able to play. So we don't know how to play the game of love. So, sorry, the last part is number 6, and it's choice. So you take all this information and you go through all this kind of funnel, and then you decide. You have to learn how to decide, and you have to decide based on information gathered. You know, so to me, this is kind of a more scientific approach to it, if you will. But I feel like love kind of needs more, it needs more guidance, it needs more direction. We need better advice because there's a lot of cliches and platitudes kind of out in the field of this whole dynamic. But I feel like we really need to focus on really what do I want? So the whole, who are you? What do you want? What do you value? And where do you want to go? And this really synthesizes all of that so you can make, in my opinion, a really, really intelligent choice about not only who do you want to choose in love, but reigniting in the relationship that maybe you're already in because we didn't go through this process from the beginning. That was a lot.
Oh, very well said. Very well said, Miss Kelly. I love it. Playing the game of love. So,
Yeah.
tell us the research process of Love is Not Blind.
So when I was little, my parents divorced, and I was blindsided. Like I did not see it coming. Now, I mean, not little, like I was 16, 17, right in there, but young, a long time ago. And I thought our family was so perfect. I had these great parents. I had my 2 sisters. Life was good. We lived in a small town. And then it just blew up. And I was, about a year off from going to college. And I I didn't understand what happened. And so then with that, I was so baffled by it. I then proceeded to have my own comedy of errors in relationships. Like I was a true just disaster. And so I started thinking about, so what's going on here? So I studied, philosophy in college and all these different ways about looking at relationships, but nothing really gave me the answer. Like it was all this kind of great, like theoretical stuff, but nothing ever really gave me like what is really going on here. So about 10 years ago, my husband and I, f- I was good enough in relationships to find a husband that would put up with me, pretty much is how I look at it. So 10 years ago, we found
Yes.
this guy, John Cundiff, and he had this just amazing way of explaining human communication, coordination, and action, and how we all kind of work together. Because I believe we're all together on this planet as one, essentially. And we have to learn how to communicate and coordinate action effectively because, it's all about love. The bottom line to everything is love. I don't care how you look at it. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're at in the world. I don't care your demographic. It all comes down to love. And so he just had this amazing way of explaining it. So he used it as business. My husband uses it for business because, you know, relationships are everywhere. It doesn't matter where you look at it. But I looked at it, and I'm like, this is the best way to explain what's going on underneath all of our relationships, not only with my daughters, my husband, my friends, my family, every single person I come into contact with. I use Forecross to help me navigate those relationships in a way that's understanding and accepting and loving and kind and gracious. And it just helps me understand not only myself, so the self-awareness, but all the people I come into contact with. So I finally, like after 10 years, after honing this and kind of putting it into a different format, I finally wrote this book. And it's based on a lot of different ways of looking at life. In particular, I think the most profound is Native Americans' medicine wheel. And so that's like a very, very short version of the history behind it, but it comes from a lot of different ways of looking at what's going on in this life? What are we doing? You know? And to me,
Yes.
like it's all about love.
So, Michelle, what message or takeaway do you want readers to gain in the playing in love?
The one thing I want people to understand is that, no matter how you've struggled with the idea of love, no matter what has happened for you and how you look at it, it's not necessarily your fault. And what's happened is that we just don't see it. We don't have the playbook. And so once you start realizing this, you can play the game of love so much better. It isn't impossible. It's not, I mean, it's relationships are hard no matter how you look at it, but once you understand the playbook and what's really happening underneath all of your relationships, it's just not that hard. It's beautiful, actually. It's essentially the best thing. It is the best thing on the planet.
Yes, I agree. Totally agree 100%. So, how did you structure the love is not blind?
So I structured it like in three parts. So the first part is really about, really getting your head around the game of love, your position. I describe all four positions in detail, like in very a lot of detail. And so you can really kind of figure out what your position is then. So you then at the end of the first part of it, try to find your position. So I ask you all these questions and how do you know, looking at how you go about looking at life. Then the second part is based on the show Love is Blind on Netflix. And I go through the 6 parts of the Four Cross Love checklist and how to go about looking at each part of the checklist chapter by chapter, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts of the checklist. And I'm sorry, the third part is actually all the stories around the show Love is Blind and how, hey, I go through each season. So actually it's season 1 through 6, the 3 Brazilian seasons and the Swedish seasons of Love is Blind. And I take each coupling case by case and show you each of their positions and what happened in their game of love. And so it kind of describes that whole thing. And then the last part is literally just, bringing it all together, the conclusion. And I have a whole section on procrastination and projecting, sexual relationships by position, like how to look like going into a therapy session with each position, so you can kind of see it from their point of view. Um, yeah. Oh, and red flags by position, which is, like a huge popular thing. Like we're not really red flagging. What we're really doing is we're picking up on our concerns within other people and we see them as red flags, but they're not necessarily red flags. And I think we start putting up these boundaries and all these things like, oh, get away from that person, or that person is toxic, or this kind of all these different things that to me burden ourselves with anger and frustration. And we're just misunderstanding, misinterpreting. I call it blind upset. So blind upset is the chasm between what was said, how it was meant, how it was heard, how it played out, and how it makes each of us feel and react based on our positions in the game. So we're misunderstanding and misinterpreting people, and then we have to go put up our boundaries. And so I just think that to me, that's the antithesis of love. We're just misunderstanding each other.
Definitely. Misunderstanding, and we need to work out. So, Miss Shelley, can you share one of your favorite chapter of the book? Love is not blind. You are.
Mm. That's so funny. I was looking through it the other day, and my favorite chapter has to be the one about how each position lines up with the other. And so it really explains, I can't remember what chapter it's, I think it's 14. One
Can
sec.
you read for us a
What's the
sample,
checklist? Yeah,
please?
yes, absolutely. Oh, 1 second. I have to get there. Okay. So, actually, we'll go with potential red flags by position. In the intricate dance of relationships, understanding the forces that drive our behaviors and interactions is the key to fostering meaningful and lasting connections. The Four Cross Love framework offers a revolutionary perspective on the game of love, revealing that our actions and relationships are not random, but deeply rooted in our biological positions. These positions, northeast, south, and west, each come with distinct strengths and challenges that shape how we relate to others and navigate the complexities of love. The following examples provide a look at how each position in the Four Cross Love framework may express their concerns in ways that could potentially hinder a relationship. By bringing these behaviors so to light, I aim to empower you with the knowledge to not only identify these patterns in yourself and others, but also to transform them into opportunities for growth and deeper understandings. In the game of love, awareness is your greatest ally, and the Four Cross Love framework is your guide to playing the game more skillfully with compassion and wisdom.
Compassion and wisdom, they are twins.
Yes, that is the key to me, like understanding each other versus fighting each other.
Yes.
That
So
is
tell us,
everything.
definitely. So tell us, Michelle, your writing process of Love is Not Blind.
Oh my gosh, it's been literally 10 years in the making. So I've written about this, like I told you, I have maps, and my husband and I have written about this and done this over and over and over and over and over and over again. So finally, we've been trying to work together, and finally I realized, no, I really just want to go do it about love. And so for the last, I would say, year, I've been kind of putting this together with an editor and really trying to figure out what will help people the most. I am here to help people see that love does not have to be suffering. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be unsolvable, like this puzzle that you have to well, the truth is it kind of is a puzzle, but once you understand that you can learn how to put the puzzle together, it makes all the sense in the world. So I just
Okay.
loved writing process. I just love the subject of love, and I love helping people. It's just I want to help people get along and recognize that we're all in this together. And this whole thing is about recognizing that these cycles and sequences to humans and human nature and nature, we're all connected. So that to me is only everything. I mean, just the fact that you and I connect here, like,
Yes.
it's just so weird and randomly, but it's so lovely, isn't it?
Yes, I totally agree. So, how did you stay motivated throughout the writing process?
Oh gosh, because I love it. Like, I couldn't stop. I
Yes.
thought, like, some people, because this subject to me is everything. So there was, it's nonfiction too. So I don't think like I got caught in the moment of trying to come up with characters and all that kind of stuff, which my daughter loves all that, all those different worlds and fantasy and stuff, which I love. It's not my thing. But for me, this was just an expression of what I really, really care about, what I really love.
So, did you outline it or wrote down or
Oh yeah.
organically?
I outlined it. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I
Okay.
really wanted to get it, like, so that it was succinct and it made
Mm.
sense and people could follow it easily. Because nonfiction books, if you just kinda go throw it onto paper, it can be very confusing. So
Yes.
I'm hoping I'm hoping I put it in a way that really makes sense. Like, there's always 3 parts to a story, beginning, middle, and end, and I'm hoping that it makes sense that way.
Definitely. So, when you realize that love is not blind, is really ready for publishing, what is the hint that this manuscript is ready for publication?
I didn't get that last part. So when was it ready? When did I know that it was ready for publication?
Yes, the
Oh,
manuscript of Love is Not Blind.
oh, that's funny because, I've been through 3 kind of big versions of it, if you will. The first one was kind of a beta version. I was like, that's definitely not it." And I had some people read it and they were confused, and if you confuse, you lose. And I didn't want to
Yes.
confuse people. So the second version I sent off to my sister-in-law and my sister, and they both were still a little bit like, "This is good, but I'm still not sure about the checklist." And to me, the checklist is really the scientific approach to it, and that needs to be super clear. So the third version I sent out, and I finally to myself thought, this is super clear. And I sent it out to them again, like, okay, now I get that that's actually what's going on here. It makes sense. It's succinct. It has an order. And by the end of it, I get it. Like, I get what you're trying to say. So it was actually by the third, like, major version of it that I got to the end and finally published it and put it out there.
Did you hire a professional editor
I did, and I would highly, highly, highly suggest it. Yes.
to edit everything? So, Miss Shelley, what would be your advice for those first timer out there to want to write their masterpiece?
Mm, go for it. Quit overthinking it. I'm part of a big group of people that are in the publishing uh, business, self-publishing, and it's, we get so caught up. Well, each position, Northeast, South, and West, looks at it very differently. So for me as a North, I'm very North. It's just so black and white, but sometimes I can get caught up in perfection, and I want it to be exactly, the way I think it should be. But it's really helpful to have other people look at it. But it's also, and more importantly, it's to understand what positions you're giving it to, because their feedback and how they look at it is really important. Because the North is very black and white and straightforward, and East wants to just talk about it and it has a very different approach. Like, it's a very relational approach to them, and they want it to have a sense of freedom. The South position, they'll just kind of go, "Oh yeah, it's good," because they just want to get along. And the West is very critical, has a very critical approach to life, so they'll go through and nitpick like every last spelling error and grammatical error. So they're looking at it very differently. So it's important to recognize who you're handing it off to when you're going about this process of writing a book.
Very well said, Miss Shelley. And stop procrastinating, people. If you have the passion to write, write, just like Miss
Hmm.
Shelley. Now, is love is not blind. So, what is your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
Well, my short-term goal is just, to get to show people that this is a book and this is what I love and this is what I'm offering. And I do I do offer like one-on-one coaching, like love investigating, like I'm taking cases. But my big goal is to do an actual dating app that works.
Yes.
Like, because if we start recognizing what position you are and you're attracted to the opposite, and that could be the basis for the application, it could decrease so many different underlying things that we think that matter don't. And we get so caught up in the superficial stuff. So that's my big dream. And what I'd really like to do is create some empirical evidence, like some scientific empirical evidence, like getting some people to follow the checklist and these positions and actually seeing in long term how much it helps people stay together and pick the right person for them and really love being in love. That would be my ultimate goal.
Wow. Looking forward for that dating app, Michelle. I wish you all the best. I hope your goals will come true.
Thank
And
you,
so,
Daniel.
Michelle, can you please invite our listeners to support Love is Not Blind? You are.
Yes. Well, you can go on my website. So it's the number 4 crosslove.com and you can get my book. What I love to send out every Friday is a love letter.
Yes.
So it literally is like a love letter and how to love the person that you're with from their position better. I love that, and I offer, like I said, love investigations case by case if you want to go. But my website's 4crosslove.com, the number 4 crosslove.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Shelley Levin because if you support her, more love story to come. More love playing games of love to come. So, Miss Shelley, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon. So, Miss Shelley, I'm inviting you again to come